Hello and welcome to Experiential Learning Lesson 16. It is on evaluative and analytical reports. I'm Eloise, coming at you from Durban campus. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to review an example of a recent informative report, discuss the role and importance of research in developing an informative report, deliberate the structure and content of an informative report, investigate the planning skills involved in the creation of an informative report, evaluate the written skills involved in the creation of an informative report, and apply this newfound knowledge to the discussion of the Coca-Cola report. In this lesson, we will be covering content that is on pages 301 to 310 of your textbook Working Professionalism, so please have that ready. As a recap, and trusting that you have read or at least skimmed the Coca-Cola report, what are the main differences between a project proposal and the Coca-Cola report? Discuss it in your class. There are different kinds of reports, and the one that we will be focusing on today is an informative report. They are common in the working world as certain people in an organization have access to information which needs to then be presented to others so that decisions can be made. Therefore, you need to know how to write a professional, comprehensive, and well-structured report. Often, an informational report is written after completing an investigation into an issue. This kind of report is purely about the facts without any opinions or recommendations. Another kind of report is an analytical report, and these can give well-reasoned commentary on a matter, provide an accurate and complete analysis of an issue, so not rather than just information, analysis of that information, report the results of an investigation, provide practical conclusions, offer recommendations, and provide multiple problem-solving options. So this is different from an informational report, which doesn't have the addition of interpretation and recommendation. So as I said, today's lesson is focusing on informative reports, not analytical reports. So before you start writing your report, or even researching your report, ask yourself, who is the audience and how important is the report? Is it going to be used to make a major decision about entering a new market or closing a branch? Or is it something that is more the likes of just reporting on the progress of a certain marketing strategy? Then you need to think about the title. The title will determine the content of the report and dictate whether it is an investigation or feedback. Often you will be assigned a report to do, and then the title might already exist. If not, then there will be something in the brief for creating the report that will indicate to you what the title should be. It shouldn't just be sales report. That is too vague. It needs to be specific and give a clear idea of what is going to be contained in the report. You will also need terms of reference, which determine the scope of the report. So that is what is going to be covered, when the research occurred, and why the investigation was done. You will also need to consider your methodology. Establish what information you need and how you will gather it. So methodology can be something as simple as accessing data that your organization already has about a recent, let's say the past year of income versus loss, or it can be more in-depth research which involves doing surveys and interviews with many different people. Then your methodology is a bit more complex. Sometimes you are the one who is creating the data that will then belong to the organization. So think about that before you begin. And then you will need to have an idea of your structure. Plan the sections of the report and the order that they will appear. It needs to be logical and make sense and help the people reading the report to understand the issues better. As we established in the research section of your last lesson, no matter how well you understand an issue, you cannot write a report without substantial research. This research involves finding relevant information and recording it accurately. It is important to maintain focus and only include data which is relevant to the scope of the report while ensuring that the information is comprehensive. So comprehensive means that you're not leaving any gaping holes in the research. When somebody reads the report, they shouldn't have a question on every single page which goes, but what about that? But what about this? You are answering those questions before they even pop into the minds of your audience. And then when I say relevant to the scope, I mean, you don't want a 65-page document with pages and pages and pages of data, which isn't actually relevant. Can it be summarized into one number? Is it actually part of the scope of the report? So comprehensive, as in it covers everything it has to. Relevant, which means it doesn't go beyond what it has to. Before you begin, ensure that you clearly understand who needs the report and why. Ask questions, communicate. We've been talking about business communications. If you don't understand the scope of your report, this is going to be extremely difficult to create. So as I said, there are different research approaches, and some of them will be interviews or surveys. Other information you can get from more academic sources like books, journals, or research papers. And then you could also find a lot of information online from reputable and reliable sites. There are all kinds of fantastic organizations that create and collate and interpret data for you. So find out what they are. Places like the World Economic Forum or Deloitte are famously reliable in their research, and you don't want to go to a blog and have them give you a percentage that you don't understand where it came from. So that's what I mean when I say reputable and reliable. Is the same information available elsewhere? Why not? Do you get the same numbers when you look at their data? Is their methodology accurate? Things like that are relevant. So not just any source online is an accurate source. So when you are considering your research options, how and where will you keep track of the information you gather? Is it all just going to be voice notes to yourself? Or do you think it would be more sensible to have a spreadsheet where you input data? How will you lay it out? How will you make sure that it has space for all the information that you're capturing? Is it going to be kept on the cloud in a Google Doc? Or is it just going to be kept on your phone? Think about these things. Think about which one is the most reliable and helpful. Numbers. You may need numeric data or statistics. Ensure that you have access to recent and reliable numbers. And be sure to check the methodology of your sources, as I said on the last slide. So recent and reliable numbers, there's no use looking at census statistics from 2004. It's 2022. Things have changed. Find stuff that is going to be helpful. And then graphic representation. So rather than in your report providing a spreadsheet of numbers, you may require a qualitative information to be presented as a chart, something like that, some type of diagram, an infographic. There's qualitative and quantitative. So think about how you're going to present your data in an informative way. Remember to remain objective without bias or prejudice. Bias is where you trust or want to believe certain things, you give them favor, and prejudice is where you discriminate against other information. So just because you want something to be true, you might ignore sources that contradict that. And it's important that you don't do this because it is a professional report. It's not about confirming what you want people to believe. It's about presenting information as it is. Ensure that your language and formatting is professional and formal because it is a professional document. So you're going to avoid slang and you're going to make sure that your formatting is business-like rather than very creative. Avoid making assumptions about what the audience already knows. And by that, I mean that you may think, oh, these people are in the industry, that means that they know ABC. Rather include it just in case, because you can't assume that people know things, and that may lead you to leaving holes in the report. Some reports are delivered verbally, maybe with a PowerPoint presentation, but there will always be a physical or digital copy of the information and made available for reference. And when you create this written copy of your report, you need to ensure that the content is simply and clearly presented for ease of reference. That means using things like a contents page, subheadings, as the second point says, use heading and subheadings to assist the audience with navigating the document. Ensure the information is relevant while comprehensive and thorough. We've kept harping on this point. You can't include every little bit of information you find, but you cannot exclude things which are relevant. Include a section which details the methods of obtaining the information. So that's your methodology section. Where did the information come from? It matters. So the structure of an informative report isn't hard and fast as a rule. It's not concrete, but there are some guidelines that will help you with writing most kinds of informative reports. It needs to be systematic and logical, and it should start with a front page with the title, subheading, the name of the author, you, and the date it was compiled. That date will tell people how recent the information is. There will be a table of contents for a longer report. If your report is very short, just a few pages, then this might not be necessary. But for more extended reports, yes, a table of contents with page numbers and headings. Executive summary. So we covered this with your proposal and the previous lesson, an executive summary of essential information such as the context, methods, and findings. This section is written last. You need to know what's in the report before you summarize it in an abstract. And this is not vague summary, this is a specific summary. Introduction. Explaining the why, where, who, when, what, and how. So this is now a more extended overview of why you are writing the report, where the information was found, who is involved. That means your audience, and that means your research pool if you're doing interviews. Who is it relevant to? When? When did you do the research? When was this report compiled? When is the information from? What? What is the information that you have discovered? And how? Your methodology. How did you get the information? So after you've done that overview in the introduction, then you need a more in-depth methodologies and procedures section explaining how the data was collected. This is a large section of the report which contains all questionnaires, interviews, and details of information gathering. Obviously, if they're extensive, you may rather have an appendix or annex with the answers to the questionnaires and interviews. Findings. So this is the most important part of the report, and it could also be the most extensive. The findings is what assists with decision making, and they should be organized with headings and subheadings. So think about, why did this report get made? Who asked for it? What was the aim? And the findings should give all the information that is required to make those decisions and understand that matter. And then appendices or annexes provide extra information which may be helpful but is not essential. They're labeled Appendix A and so on, can be referred to in earlier sections of the report. So you could say in your findings, we discovered in blah, 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 view Annex A that, and so on. So, as a class, compare the similarities and discrepancies between the theory and the Coca-Cola report, the informational Coca-Cola report, and then discuss the functions of the respective sections within the report. In the next lesson, we'll take a closer look at the role and importance of evaluative reports, that's an analytical report, as well as what goes into the development and creation of evaluative reports. In preparation for the class, read the Fit as a Fiddle final evaluation report. The cover page is seen here.